In Venice Beach, substance abuse is pushing one of America's most famous tourist spots into a messy downward spiral, a place where people can quickly lose control and confrontations keep building until police finally step in. So what does that reality really look like up close? Welcome everyone. Today we're looking deeper into Venice Beach, one of the most lively and recognizable stretches of coastline in the United States, where energy, art, and freedom come together beneath the California sun in a way few places can truly match. But behind that postcard perfect scenery, Venice is also carrying a long list of problems, complicated, harsh, and impossible to look away from. Tents are cleared, then slowly return. People are moved out, then appear again. Systems intervene, and somehow still lose control. After a while, you begin to ask what is actually being fixed here.
You know they monitor us all the time. This is full of tents. They just moved it. They're reclaiming their sidewalk and they put cactus in. But we got plenty of room over here. I don't know where our brothers and sisters are.
And those wandering figures, you notice, why are they lying still on the ground? Or at times moving around in ways that seem completely out of control? Why is this now shaping the feeling of safety and comfort for both locals and tourists?
Away from me!
At the moment, city leaders are standing firm. Mayor Karen Bass and Council Member Tracy Park, both facing intense re-election pressure, have said they will not back down. And yes, that sounds forceful. But meanwhile, millions in taxpayer money are being poured into the crisis. Still, Venice feels as if it is becoming something else entirely. Almost like a machine that keeps pulling people through displacement and desperation.
Do you get any government assistance? That you get any money from the government?
No, they cut off my food stamps.
They even cut off your food stamps.
So, let's break it apart step by step, from the visible warning signs to the system failures unfolding right here in this hotspot. Across the west side, the nods are everywhere now. People bent forward in a frozen, almost impossible-looking daze known on the street as the nod. Then there are the walking time bombs, blank expressions, abrupt blackouts, and unpredictable collapses seen day after day near Rose Avenue and the Boardwalk.
That all over my body. It's like a dopey, lightning, shitty feeling one in my elbows and my knees. And it was like it would give me restless leg syndrome all my joints. And it makes me sleepy. It'll be a shitty kind of sleepy because I won't be able to go to sleep. Just
We're also seeing serious skin ulcers that resemble injuries from a battlefield guide, breaking down tissue as the body's blood flow begins to fail. Xylazine, known on the street as Trank, has slammed into the west side, making the already lethal fentanyl crisis even more dangerous. Because it is not an opioid, Narcan does not reverse its effects, increasing the danger during overdose emergencies. In Venice, in 2026, the Boardwalk's pulse is no longer the drum circle. It is the unstable rhythm of someone struggling through a hot dose from a sedative-heavy drug mix. Meanwhile, meth continues to dominate the street environment, fueling serious physical decline, agitation, and erratic behavior.
Yeah, that's your dead! You're dead!
Around Venice in 2026, especially near Rose Avenue and the Boardwalk, this combination is defining what daily street survival looks like. The outcome is crushing. Overdoses remain the top cause of death among unhoused people, making up about 37 to 40% of fatalities, with fentanyl and meth tied to most cases. In Venice, groups like St. Joseph's Center and Venice Family Clinic are already working on the front lines, providing outreach, behavioral health support, substance use treatment, and street medicine, while the county keeps running its Ocean Front Walk outreach pilot. The fact that these systems are still under such heavy pressure shows how far the damage has spread. And if all of this is still unfolding in plain sight along the boardwalk, what does that say about the programs the city insists are succeeding? That is what makes Venice so complicated. The people still living outside are often those with the deepest and most overlapping needs. They do not just need one service. They need multiple systems to work together steadily and without gaps. Miss even one part housing treatment, medical care, or follow-up, and the entire plan begins to break down. And here is the hard truth. What many people describe as a street problem is often the final result of several institutions failing the same person again and again. But let's pull back to street level, where this plays out every day, and return to that notorious corner that has become Venice's symbol of failure. Get ready for the harsh comeback story that has locals furious. Here's the first detail that should make you pause only 3 years after the Inside Save program publicly cleared this very spot and moved 92 people into temporary housing. The infamous camp is back, and the street conditions appear even more chaotic and entrenched than before. That matters because this is not just another side street. This location had already become a symbol of the crisis once, and now it is turning into one all over again. So to start, no one can honestly say this is completely under control. Shouting breaks out at every hour. Public defecation and piles of garbage take over the sidewalks. Open drug use happens in broad daylight as business owners stand by watching their property get tagged, damaged, and stolen. Longtime residents who have lived through 35 years in Venice are openly angry, saying that law enforcement is simply not being applied consistently. As a result, what city officials once promoted as a major success has fallen back into a tense street survival zone where people struggle every day for space, safety, and the next hit. As a result, the spaces between the city's 41.18 no camping enforcement zones give these small but highly resistant groups just enough room to set themselves back up almost after each sweep. Many of these individuals openly turn down housing offers, choosing the harsh, unstable freedom of the streets instead, even with the serious physical toll, constant weather exposure, poor sanitation, and ongoing mental strain. These repeated attention-grabbing sweeps are beginning to look more like costly performance than real solutions. They move people for a short time, but they often wipe out the few belongings these individuals have: IDs, medication, clothing, and any kind of shelter, making everyday survival on the street even harder and more dangerous. Mayor Karen Bass and Council Member Tracy Park, both facing intense re-election pressure, continue to say they will not back down. Still, the pattern on the ground is painfully clear and relentless. Fast cleanup, temporary movement, then quick re-entrenchment. This vicious cycle does more than drain millions in taxpayer money. It also deepens the physical and mental damage for the very people it says it is trying to help, turning Venice Beach into a grinding system of displacement and despair. What passes for compassion in Venice has turned into a slow-moving crisis. The ER's revolving door has jammed because there is almost nowhere left to send people. Psychiatric units are at 110% capacity, and the streets have become an unofficial asylum with no walls. Look at the survival data and the picture is bleak. This is no longer just a social problem. We are watching human bodies and minds break down under the pressure of industrial-strength narcotics. It is fast, ugly, and happening in plain view of $5 million condos. That creates a vicious cycle that keeps feeding itself. Many people only slipped into heavy use after losing housing, but the drugs then intensify hallucinations, explosive outbursts, and restless, erratic movement that can make every block feel unstable. Here is the controversial reality: many policymakers avoid housing alone without serious treatment. First often fails badly because addiction and mental health issues remain unresolved. Many people reject services outright, holding onto the streets for the raw freedom to chase the next hit. Even worse, only about 10% receive consistent care. So street medicine teams keep pushing uphill with naloxone distribution and quick mental health checks, but the cycle keeps turning. Sweeps may move people for a day, but damaged bodies and untreated minds are pulled right back into the same harsh survival equation night after night. The grace period on Venice sidewalks is finished, ended by a court ruling in D.C. and carried out through hard enforcement in L.A. The constitutional protection that once helped turn Venice's boardwalk into a protected zone of disorder has now broken apart, leaving thousands of people with nowhere they can legally be. The city is no longer working under the 2018 Martin versus Boise framework, the 2024 Grants Pass versus. Johnson decision has basically turned municipal code into a weapon against public camping itself. By early 2026, the approach is no longer outreach, it is attrition. On the ground, the reality is a non-stop 247 cycle of displacement. As a result, LAPD and LASAN, the sanitation department, have moved from monthly cleanups to frequent sweeps that operate with the precise force of a military-style removal. If your tent sits within 500 feet of a school park or other sensitive use area under Ordinance 41.18, you are considered an unauthorized obstruction. Full stop. city no longer has to prove a shelter bed is available before arrests become possible. Most importantly, this shift has closed the enforcement gap local politicians complained about for years, but it has also created a chaotic game of human whack-a-mole. In practical terms, the city is treating this like an inventory problem, not a human crisis. When a 5 a.m. sweep hits Hampton Drive, the goal is not rehabilitation, it is clearance. Sanitation crews arrive with heavy equipment throwing biocontaminated belongings into the backs of crushers, while officers check warrants right there on the scene. At the same time, the bubble effect is fully underway. As Venice Beach turns into a high-pressure enforcement zone, the population is spilling into Mar Vista's industrial corridors and the tight alleys of Del Rey. By clearing the view for wealthier residents, the city has effectively become a pressure cooker of displaced desperation. That brings us to the harsh, controversial center of the 2026 survival landscape is a sidewalk that looks clean, actually safe for homeowners in the $5 million bungalows. The answer is clearly yes. Property values are leveling out and the boardwalk finally feels breathable again. But from a street survival perspective, the city has broken apart the stability of the tents, pushing the most vulnerable and mentally strained people into non-stop movement. Non-stop movement leads to sleep loss. Sleep loss can lead to psychosis. In effect, this martial law on the sidewalks has traded visible disorder for hidden, fast-moving trauma. We are watching the systematic removal of Venice's homeless presence, but the human cost is simply being shifted onto another ledger. The harsh numbers hitting Venice Beach in early 2026 land like the first punch from the Rand Leeds report. Unsheltered homelessness fell by a clear 22%, dropping from about 750 people to roughly 585. On paper, that sounds like meaningful progress, but here is the detail that changes the whole picture. The decline hides a severe street-level shift, as rough sleepers, people with no shelter whatsoever, jumped from 23% to almost 48% of the total. These are the people sleeping directly on concrete night after night, absorbing the full physical punishment of rain, wind, heat, and having no real protection. As a result, vehicle dwellers dropped 25% after aggressive sweeps, but the people still left outside are now the toughest cases remaining. Rand's data shows the official Lhasa pit count undercounts the Venice situation by 24 to 32%, because these rough sleepers move quickly, keep out of sight, and avoid the counters. Meanwhile, LA County overall saw only a small 3 to 4% decrease, while Venice remains a stubborn hotspot because its beachfront setting continues drawing in people who are the most desperate to survive. Even worse, the causes behind this crisis are deep, harsh, and tightly connected. Soaring rents up more than 40% since before the pandemic shut working families out almost overnight and turned ordinary apartments into unreachable luxuries. Then, post-COVID eviction waves pushed thousands onto the streets, and many never recovered. Add the constant flow of cheap fentanyl and crystal meth hitting harder than ever, along with a mental health system overwhelmed by demand, and you get a nearly perfect survival trap. On top of that, supportive housing projects like Venice Dell have been delayed for nearly 10 years by lawsuits, local NIMBY resistance, and endless bureaucracy, leaving no long-term beds for the people who need them most. Uneven 41.18 no camping zones create built-in openings that allow small service-resistant groups to settle back in almost right after each sweep. Here's the second point that fuels serious debate. The uncomfortable truth many officials avoid is that these declines are mostly paper victories. The survival math remains brutal. Fewer people overall, but those who remain face harsher daily damage with no room for mistakes. That is exactly why the cycle keeps going. Venice Beach in 2026 is not searching for a solution. It is desperately reaching for an exit strategy that is not there. Objectively, the housing first model that shaped the last decade has run into a structural wall replaced by a harsh enforcement first approach that puts clearance ahead of care. The city has spent billions trying to put out a social fire that will not die, because in effect, it has been paying to fight the smoke while the fuel industrial drugs and widespread mental breakdown keeps pouring in. As a result, the standard for saving Venice has shifted away from rehabilitation and toward fast-moving containment. The survival data is devastating. You cannot save a district when the bodies and minds of its street population are being broken down by synthetic toxins in real time. What we are seeing now is a zero-sum trade-off where clean sidewalks are purchased through hidden, displaced trauma. Ultimately, if saving Venice means turning the boardwalk into a sanitized, high-security passageway for the ultra-wealthy, then the city's bohemian spirit has already become collateral damage. The real controversy is not whether the beach can be fixed, but whether we have collectively decided that the people living on it are no longer worth the investment. In the end, Venice Beach 2026 reflects a society that has run out of patience, run out of space, and maybe run out of mercy.